Don't cry for me, quarantina.
Heyo, quarantinos! Yes, we're back with more of the inimitable, the incorrigible, the Pockyclypse Variety Show. I'm your host, Kathleen, and here, of course, is my faithful co-host, Eustace. Yes, I know he's your favorite. You don't have to tell me. Not that you can, because comments are automatically disabled on YouTube if you mark your video as made for kids. To be clear, this isn't only for kids. If you're not a kid, you are very welcome here. If you are a kid, you are also welcome here. That's how it works here at the Pockyclypse Variety Show. Everyone is welcome to come in and feel the togetherness from far, far, far apart from each other. Finally getting some sunshine today, which comes as a relief to most Californians who have a very low tolerance for cloudy days. If the cabin fever's already getting you down and you just can't look at the same walls and the same stuff anymore, I've got some good news for you, don't I, Eustace? As a matter of fact, there is more that you can get out and look at. And by get out, I mean stay in. Over 2,500 museums around the world have posted their collections online so that you can virtually tour them through, let's see, what's it called? The Google Arts and Culture. Yes, the Google Arts and Culture. That's how we say it in the English. That's right. Google is also your gateway to touring many of the wonderful national parks we have right here in the United States. And let me tell you, national parks are some of our favorite things, aren't they, Eustace? My husband and I got the annual Parks Pass this year as we made our move from Georgia to California. We were thinking, boy, there's a lot we haven't seen out on the western half of the United States. So hang on, a little bit later I'm going to tell you some more about some of those parks that we visited. Meanwhile, our last bit of news today comes to us from the country of Argentina, where a concerned mother and citizen wrote to her president because her young son had recently lost his first tooth, as a result of which the president has issued a special exception to the stay-at-home rule for the tooth fairy. Oh, Eustace would like to know, where exactly is the country of Argentina? Well, I'm glad you asked, Eustace, because I just happen to have a globe right here. Ta-da! Because who doesn't have a globe handy? Now, we want to be in the southern hemisphere. The hemispheres are the halves of the Earth. On the globe, there's generally a line in the middle, and that marks what's called the equator. And if you're Australian, you live in the southern half, which is called the southern hemisphere. But what else is in the southern hemisphere? Among other things, Argentina. So if you started out from North America, you would go down through Central America to South America, and if you get all the way to the bottom, you'll see that there are two countries side by side, Chile and Argentina, where they are still not crying for me. A couple of other countries that you may have heard people talking about recently are China and Italy. So we're also going to find out where those are relative to Argentina, where we were just talking about, and California. So I'm here in North America, that's the continent I live on. In the United States of America, that's the country I live in. And California, on the western side, is the state that I live in. Now, I'm not from California originally. I came from Illinois and Georgia, and then I moved out to California just about a year ago. But my ancestors came from a continent across the Atlantic Ocean called Europe. And Europe is where we will find Italy. Italy is sticking down into this water that goes between Europe and Africa. And that water is called the Mediterranean Sea. Now from Europe, if you keep on going further east, you'll see this huge one here. This huge country is Russia. If you go all the way across till you run out of Russia, you'll come to the Pacific Ocean. So if you go south from there, the biggest country around here, under Russia, is China. And that's the other one we were looking for. China, Italy, United States of America, and then back to the southern hemisphere for Argentina. So now you know how to find 4 countries on the globe, and they are each in a different continent. China is in Asia, Italy is in Europe, The United States of America is in North America, and Argentina is in South America. There are more continents. If you're lucky, we might bring the globe back and learn more geography. Eustace really likes geography. So, now to telling you about those national parks I promised we'd get back to. My husband and I moved from Georgia to California last year. America is so big. We have a lot of different climates and a lot of different types of landscapes. We traveled all the way from lush, green Georgia through hilly, flat, swampy, rocky, dry places. In Arizona, we had the immense pleasure of visiting one of America's most famous landscapes, which is the Grand Canyon. It's not just a hole in the ground. It has been called a hole in the ground. It is, but it's like So this book of postcards is called Chasing the Light. This one on the cover has cloudy weather with lightning strikes. It was definitely we were not having lightning when I was there. When we went to the Grand Canyon, the first thing we did was go to the visitor center. Now, visitor centers are great because they give you information and context for learning about the place that you're visiting. And sometimes the things that delight you most are discovered there. And then they really come to fruition when you go out into the park and really experience it for yourself. What? So there are really interesting rock formations. Here's a natural window. Our two favorite things that we learned at the visitor center about the Grand Canyon were one experiential one and one informational one. Here you can see the river at the bottom. That is the Colorado River. The experiential one was seeing some video of clouds over the Grand Canyon and the sunlight shining from behind them, casting the shadows of those clouds, which then, as the wind blew, moved swiftly over the canyon, and it was just the most gorgeous sight. The day we were there, it was sunny and clear, not a cloud in the sky, so I feel a little disappointed, but also that was a result of bad planning, because honestly, the Grand Canyon deserves more than one afternoon of our time, and we really should go back. This one's incredible. See, I would love to see the canyon with clouds above it, or with clouds inside of it. We plan to go back and camp and stay there for several days, and then maybe we'll have the chance to see different types of weather. If it turns out to be sunny the whole time, it's hard to complain about that while you're camping. That one's breathtaking. Wow. Our other favorite thing to discover was that when people of European ancestry first discovered the Grand Canyon, their sentiment about it was more or less that it was a big hole in the ground, utterly desolate, very ugly, very troublesome, and no one would ever come here on purpose. That's pretty funny considering that there are people who have lived there for a very long time, and also that now people flock from the whole world over to visit the place. Here's one cool formation. I think if we look on the back of these postcards, they'll tell us what they are. This one is Mount Hayden at sunset. Seen from the North Rim's Point Imperial, Mount Hayden is in the foreground of a scene that stretches all the way to the Painted Desert. Isn't that a beautiful name, the Painted Desert? Now I can understand if you were going across the country and discovering it as you went, and you were trying to get to the other side of this area, and you come across this enormous crack in the earth that just splits the landscape. You can't go from the top of the North Rim to the top of the South Rim or the other way without having to go into the canyon deep down and then climb back out of the canyon, up and up and up. And imagine if you had a lot of gear, and if you had animals that weren't used to climbing, and if you had a wagon or a cart full of things. You would look at this and go, how can we go around it? It's huge. It goes on and on, really far that way, really far that way. From a vantage point 3,000 feet above the river, the view from Toroweap Point in the Tuweap district of Grand Canyon National Park provides an unparalleled view of the river at both sunrise and sunset. And it's very impressive, very deep, very long, very beautiful, actually. But I think if I were one of those people who encountered it with those limitations, I would have been pretty depressed about it too. A stormy sky reveals Desert Watchtower as it is illuminated by a dramatic shaft of late afternoon sunlight. As it is, I can't wait to go back. Wow. Nature's great, guys. You should definitely go check out those virtual tours. Of course, once we got to California, we had to come visit one of California's most famous parks, Yosemite. Ta-da! It's pretty and amazing. This is called Half Dome. Let me see if I unfold this, if there's more of this picture. Oh, there is. Huzzah! So let's learn a little bit about Yosemite National Park. Yosemite's natural beauty can be found in things big and small, from towering granite cliffs and giant sequoias to diminutive wildflowers. Varied conditions in 4 geographic areas, High Sierra, granite cliffs, sequoia groves, and valley, make such diversity possible. Explore Yosemite's many facets, take in its many moods, and enjoy its views, sounds, and smells. It's a good idea to know what else there is to do there, because when my husband and I went, it was so crowded in the valley we could not park to go into the visitor center. Not at all. Now they do have a second visitor center on the other side of the park, on the eastern side. It's less accessible if you're coming from the California side, of course, which is probably why it's less busy, but it's lovely up there too. We got up early, we drove to the valley, and we saw that, and then we left the valley and kept going all the way through Yosemite, and then we drove back. And along the way we had a picnic, and we put our feet into some cool, clean mountain lake water, and then we were able to drive back out to where we live all in the same day. I'm sorry, Eustace, I didn't mean to boop your snoot. And as you can see, there's some interesting wildlife that lives there. See the acorn woodpecker and the black oak acorn. What do we have here? A mule deer. And who's this guy? A black bear. Here you can see the different regions. We've got the valley, sequoia grove, granite cliffs, and High Sierra. What is this beautiful flower? It's an alpine columbine. There are all kinds of amazing flowers and birds and bats and animals. What is this? A spotted bat. That's a spotted bat. Sure is. I just spotted him. And on the back, it's a map. I do love a map, don't you, Eustace? So much possibility. So many adventures to be had in this map. While we were at Yosemite, we picked up this book, Anywhere That Is Wild, John Muir's First Walk to Yosemite, edited by Peter and Donna Thomas. And I'm going to read a little bit of it to you today. Dear friends, fate and flowers carried me to California, and I have reveled and luxuriated amid its mountains and plants and bright sky. I followed the Diablo foothills, along the San Jose Valley to Gilroy, thence over the Diablo Mountains to the valley of San Joaquin by the Pacheco Pass. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, I am not a native Californian. Thence down the valley until about opposite the mouth of the Merced River, thence across the San Joaquin, and up into the Sierra Nevada to the mammoth trees of Mariposa and the glorious Yosemite Valley. Thence down the Merced to this place. No matter what direction I traveled, I waded in flowers by day and slept with them by night. Hundreds of flowery gems of most surpassing loveliness touched my feet and buried them out of my sight at every step. I was very happy. The larks and insects sang in streams of unmeasured joy. A sky of plants beneath me and a sky of light above me, all kept by their Maker in perfect beauty and pure as heaven. When I first set out, September 1867, on the long excursion that finally led me to California, I wandered afoot and alone, from Indiana to the Gulf of Mexico, with a plant press on my back, holding a generally southward course, like the birds when they are going from summer to winter. From the west coast of Florida, I crossed the Gulf of Cuba and enjoyed the rich tropical flora there for 4 happy weeks in January and February. I was intending to go thence to South America, to get ashore anywhere on the north end of the continent, make my way through the woods to the headwaters of the Amazon, and float down that grand river to the ocean. But I was unable to find a ship bound for South America, fortunately perhaps, for I had incredibly little money for so long a trip. Less than $100, and not yet fully recovered from a fever caught in the Florida swamps. Therefore I decided to postpone my South American trip and visit California for a year or two to see its wonderful flora and the famous Yosemite Valley, the big trees, and the vegetation in general. All the world was before me, and every day was a holiday, so it did not seem important to which one of the world's wildernesses I first should wander. My health, which suffered such wreck in the south, had been thoroughly patched and mended in the mountains of California. I came to life in the cool winds and crystal waters of the mountains. A month in the Sierra has effected a complete cure, and I am well again. Were it not for a thought now and then of loneliness and isolation, the pleasure of my existence would be complete. I have not received a single letter from anyone since my departure from Florida, and of course I am very lonesome, and hunger terribly for the communion of friends. But I mean to settle here 8 or 9 months, and hope to see this big gap in tidings from friends well mended. This is a splendid country, and one might truthfully make use of more than half of the Methodist hymn, Land of Pure Delight, in describing it. It flows with more of milk and more of honey than ever did old Canaan in its happiest prime. Of all the bright, shining ranks of happy days that God has given me since I left Wisconsin, these of California are the happiest. Let's take this as a moment to remind everybody that you're not the only one who's feeling kind of lonely right now. Let's also especially remember older people in our lives, in our families, or outside of them, who you think might be lonely right now, would probably really appreciate a phone call. So call your grandma, kids. And if you've already called your grandma, maybe call somebody else's grandma.
Don't cry for me, Quarantina. The truth is I barely miss you. Before mandated hermit's existence, I lived much like this. Please keep your distance.